Hi, it's Ian from the Postal Hub Podcast.
And Marek from Last Mile Experts.
And we are the Last Mile Prophets. This is the last word on the last mile. Marek, some big news out of Belgium where Bpost CEO was dumped. It's one of those unusual ones where the CEO lost the support of a number of key directors and had been subject to an investigation by the Belgian Competition Authority to do with some his previous employment. And so the board, I imagine it was the board of directors, terminated...
Conseil d'administration, Mr. Kerr.
Ooh la la. They fired Jean-Paul. He was given the elbow, shown the door, given a cardboard box and told to pack up his valuables. Bpost has since then appointed an interim CEO. His name is Dirk Tirez. Was it Tirez or Tirez?
EZ, so
we've just put it down the bottom there.
It's a nice mix of Flamand and French.
It's all too much for me. However, he's the Chief Legal and Regulatory Officer and Company Secretary at Bpost, and he has been given the role as a temporary role to carry the company forward and continue to, I don't know what they said, propel its vision forward or something like that. There's a bit of press release jargon in there, Marek. It sort of begs the question again, has a CEO failed to engage everybody in a vision to carry that vision forward and implement a vision?
I think, well, amongst others, yes, of course. But what's interesting here, look, we've had several of these things happening over the past several months, as the Americans would say. So we've had Rico back, Royal Mail, or maybe it's a little more than several months. We've had Interim CEO in Estonia. It's not an easy job, is it? I think that the big challenge is you've got several stakeholders to appease. You've got a very difficult mail environment, and you've got an exploding parcel environment, and you've got to find a way to somehow pivot while keeping the stakeholders engaged, while not losing too much money. Not easy, is it?
It's not easy at all. You mentioned just not losing too much money. It can also be about securing funding, because if you need to build a new logistics centre, and we've seen quite a few posts do that lately, they don't come cheap.
Well, even more, Ian, and this is the big thing. They love investing in these big logistics centres and things, but the reality is it's the last mile they need to deal with. How can they make the postal network more customer friendly, create a good PUDO type experience? How can you do it in a manner that's asset light, keep the unions and employees on board? Not so easy. And I think this is really the big challenge. And from my perspective, let's be very honest, it is not easy, but it's doable. And I just can't understand why it is that, there cannot be a little bit more focus, getting it right. Look at what our friends in Norway Post, from all the information I've got, the stuff they're doing is really good. They've reduced the number of deliveries per week in a customer-centric manner so the customers don't mind. And why I say customer-centric, because you may say, hold on a minute, it's not customer-centric to reduce the number of days. Customers didn't notice, but it means they're not going to pay a surcharge, either as taxpayers or when they buy their stamps. They've done a great job there. They're now going full ahead in terms of locker development. So I think it can be done. Is it easy? No. But I think it's a question of finding a quite unusual animal, which is somebody who's charismatic, who can win the hearts and souls, as I always say, of the unions and the guys at the front line and girls at the front line, who can have a good strategy. It doesn't have to be brilliant, but it has to be a good strategy that can be executed, and then goes and does it.
It's a very competitive environment in that region as well. Belgium, Netherlands, etc. It is very competitive with, in Belgium, for example, PostNL operating cross-border. You've got the various carriers in the last mile for parcels, and as you've mentioned before, the declining letter volumes does present a challenge. But we're talking about a country with fairly high population density as well. So it's not completely insurmountable. I know a few people at Bpost. I'm sure you do as well, Mark. And there's a lot of good people working very hard. And we've even looked at, we've mentioned this a number of times on these videos, and I did an interview on the Postal Hub Podcast regarding their project at Mechelen. Remember this one, Marek, where they're basically setting up all those, I think they're Swipbox lockers, delivering to them with electric vehicles, just with a real focus on reducing emissions in the last mile. So there is innovation. There's lots of innovative thought within Bpost.
You ready to be wowed?
I'm always ready to be wowed.
So LME's new out-of-home report, I can now quote to you just how strong Bpost is. And this is something they've not taken advantage of. They have got around about 2,500 PUDOs and lockers, of which about, I would say, just over 10% are lockers. The next best player, according to our data, is PostNL, who've got about 1,000 less. So they do have an advantage. Yes, it is competitive, and it's not very comfortable when your neighbour Post has got so many PUDOs in your market. But it's doable. And I think somebody clever once told me, Ian, that the biggest restriction for any business is a restriction of the vision of the leader. And I think we need more postal leaders with vision. There are some really great guys and girls out there who are doing things. And I think this is what Bpost needs. So, let's hope, from what I understand, the chap in situ now is interim. Let's see who they bring in. But they need a charismatic, focused, dynamic leader who's going to basically move them forward.
The issue of another post playing in your own backyard, though, is not unique to Belgium, of course, either. I mean, plenty of people say, well, we've got Deutsche Post, DHL, running around.
La Poste DPD.
Precisely, La Poste DPD. GLS, you might say. Even Omniva, they've spread their wings beyond Estonia. They operate some of the biggest delivery networks in other Baltic states. So there is lots of competition. What I have to give full credit to some of the postal leaders in other countries that, despite having big players in their own backyard, have taken the bit between the teeth and have decided to press forward to create a postal network that's suitable for the 21st century. I think that's a key thing as well, Marek, is just making sure that the entire network, everything from, we talk about the last mile a lot, and we mentioned logistics centres, but PUDOs and post offices, they need to be fit for purpose for the 21st century as well. So being able to not just handle the parcel volumes, but give customers a great customer experience at the risk of parroting your own words back to you, Marek.
Absolutely. But Ian, at the end of the day, it is all about the people. If you win the minds and souls of the people, and there's a really great HBR article I read back when I was a student, I think, and it said, we want more of these guys. It was related to different industry, but the idea is the same, to come to work every day and not to hang up their hat, their coat and their brain and do what they've always done, but to think. And that's why you need to win their hearts, souls and minds.
The board of directors is going to press ahead to find a new CEO for Bpost. They've appointed one of those search consultants, an executive search consultant. I'll tell you what, Marek, it's good money being an executive search consultant. Have you ever seen the fees they charge?
Well, it's not as good as it used to be, and I'll tell you something. I was once hired. It was a really weird scenario where, as the new CEO, I signed off the invoice for my recruitment. Right. And I can tell you it was a lot of money, but it's apparently they used to be able to get away with 6 months plus full remuneration. I think now, in most cases, if you're lucky, it's going to be 3 or 4 months, but who knows? But they're good guys. They've got Corn Ferry, I think, on this one. And Corn Ferry are very, very smart cookies, very experienced in this space.
So there you go. I mean, please, everybody, do share your comments below. What do you think? Is this just an unfortunate confluence of events that's led to the ejection of the Bpost CEO? Or are European posts a bit jumpy at the moment with all the competition and the change that's happening in the postal world? Marek, any final comments before we wrap up?
Yeah. Look, if you've got any candidates, just put their names below. Maybe Corn Ferry will look at this video cast.
And somehow, if we can take a cut of that, that'd be nice. Marek Różycki, thanks for being part of the Last Mile Profits today.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you, everyone.